My brother told me I've been a failure since the day I was born, and when I looked to my parents for support, they just sat there in silence. So I got up and walked out of their lives without looking back. But what happened after I left made them all regret every word they ever said to me. My name is Kyle. I'm 28, a male, and I've been holding on to this story for quite a while. It's about my family, and honestly, I feel like I'm going crazy trying to figure out if I'm in the wrong here. I genuinely need an outside perspective because this has been burdening me for too long. So let me explain. Thanksgiving at my mom's house has always been a ritual of pure pandemonium. Not the warm, comforting kind you see in movies where everyone shares laughs over a slightly overcooked turkey, but the draining, why am I subjecting myself to this again? Variety. It was consistently the same, like clockwork. I knew precisely what I was stepping into the moment I parked my car out front. Mom's house looked as it always had. The peeling white paint and crooked shutters appeared to be clinging to the 1990s for dear life. But it wasn't really about the house. It was about the people within. Walking in, I braced myself, like a boxer entering the ring. The scent of turkey and pie greeted me first, which was pleasant until Mom's voice sliced through the air. She was already in the kitchen, scolding Emily, my younger sister, for bringing apple pie instead of pumpkin. Emily looked like she regretted every decision that led her to this moment, clutching the pie box as if it were a shield. Pumpkin, Emily. Does nobody listen to me anymore? Mom threw up her hands, turning back to whatever she was scorching on the stove. Emily shrugged. It's what the store had. Excuses, excuses, Mom muttered, slamming a pot onto the counter. I considered slipping out before anyone noticed me, but it was too late. Dad, entrenched in his recliner, spotted me first. He was half watching the football game, shouting as if the players on TV cared about his commentary. Well, look who decided to grace us with his presence, he said, as gruff as ever. Before I could reply, Jake, my older brother, noticed me. He was leaning against the counter, soda in one hand and a smirk on his face. Kyle, the prodigal son returns, he announced, spreading his arms as if welcoming royalty. What happened? Did Google Maps finally show you how to get back here? Nice to see you too, Jake. I responded, my voice flat, as I placed the pie I'd brought onto the table. Jake didn't let up. Still riding solo? No kids, man. What's the plan, bro? Waiting for a miracle. I forced a laugh and ignored him, heading to the kitchen to greet Mom. She didn't even glance up from the stove. You're late, she stated, stirring something aggressively. Traffic. I lied, even though I'd sat in my car for 20 minutes outside, psyching myself up to enter. Dinner wasn't even ready yet, but it already felt like I'd been there for hours. Mom's house had a way of pulling you into its eddy. Every Thanksgiving felt like stepping into a time warp. Nothing ever changed. Not the mismatched furniture, the smell of old carpet, or definitely not the people. Dad was fixated on the game. Jake, meanwhile, was doing his usual routine, acting like he owned the place. Jake was the favored child, always had been. He was the one who stayed local, married young, and had kids like it was a hobby. Meanwhile, I moved away, got a decent job in another city, and apparently became the family disappointment in the process. Yo, Kyle. Jake called from the living room. You still at that desk job? How's the corporate hamster wheel treating you? It's fine, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Fine, he mimicked, snorting. Man, you used to have big dreams. What happened to that? Thought you were going to be some hotshot. I ignored him, feigning interest in the bowl of chips on the counter. It was simpler than engaging. Emily finally joined me in the kitchen, her shoulders slumped. Mom's losing it, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. She's been losing it since we were kids, I muttered back, and Emily stifled a laugh. What's up with Jake? She inquired. He's on one tonight. He's always on one, I said, rolling my eyes. You'd think being Mr. Perfect would keep him too busy to bother with me, but nope. Emily shrugged. Well, at least you don't live here. You don't have to deal with this all the time. She had a point. I only had to endure this circus a couple of times a year. She was still stuck in town, working 2 jobs, and somehow managing Mom's incessant nitpicking. Mom interrupted us by shouting, Emily, where's the gravy? As if the world were ending. Emily sighed and went to handle it, leaving me alone again. I wondered how long I'd have to stay before it was socially acceptable to depart. Jake's voice boomed from the living room again. Kyle, are you going to sit in there all night? Come be sociable, man. It's Thanksgiving. Translation. Come out here so I can torment you in front of everyone. I took a deep breath and walked into the living room. Jake immediately patted the seat next to him on the couch, as if we were the best of friends. Come on, sit, he said, grinning. Tell us about your exciting life. I sat, but the grin on his face told me this wouldn't end well. So, he began, leaning back and crossing his arms. Still no girlfriend, huh? Dad interjected, not even looking away from the game. Lay off him, Jake. Jake laughed. What? I'm just asking. We're all family here, right? No secrets. I clenched my fists, trying to remain calm. No, Jake. No girlfriend. Thanks for asking. Shocker, he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Maybe you're being too picky. Mom walked in, wiping her hands on a towel. Dinner's ready, she announced, cutting Jake off before he could say anything else. I stood up, thanking God, relieved for the excuse to escape, even if only for a few minutes. Dinner might have been a temporary reprieve, but I knew better than to think the worst was over. Jake wasn't finished, not by a long shot. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just about him. It was the entire family dynamic, the unspoken roles we were all forced to play. Jake, the golden boy, me, the black sheep. Emily, the overlooked middle child. Mom, the ringmaster. It was utterly draining, but this was Thanksgiving at Mom's house. Same old mess, different year. Sitting at the dinner table was like entering a combat zone, except the weapons were forks, knives, and relentless passive aggression. The spread looked impressive, certainly. Mom's turkey centerpiece surrounded by various appetizers. But the atmosphere was as strained as the time Emily accidentally spilled sauce on Jake's wedding tuxedo. Everyone sat in their customary spots, like it was assigned seating. Dad at the head of the table, commanding the room without saying much. Mom next to him, ready to swoop in with corrections or guilt trips. Jake naturally took the seat across from me, while Emily and I filled in the gaps. It was a setup that guaranteed plenty of opportunities for Jake to take jabs at me, and he wasted no time getting started. So, Kyle, he began. His fork paused midair, still eating like a bird? Or did you finally learn how to enjoy real food? I ignored him, reaching for the green beans. Looks great, Mom, I said, trying to redirect the conversation. Mom smiled faintly but couldn't resist chiming in. You could use a little more on your plate, Kyle. You're looking thin. Are you eating enough these days? I'm fine, I said, just trying to stay healthy. Jake chuckled. Healthy? You're practically wasting away. You know, some of us actually work out. Maybe you should try it sometime. Thanks for the advice, Jake, I said, not looking up. You're welcome, he responded, grinning as if he'd done me a favor. Emily tried to shift the conversation. So, Jake, how are the kids doing? Oh, they're great, Jake said, puffing up with pride. Brandon just started soccer, and he's already the best on his team. He's got my genes, obviously. And Lily, smart as a whip, top of her class. That's great, Emily said, smiling politely. You must be proud. Of course, Jake said, glancing at me. But you know, not everyone gets the whole parenting thing right, Kyle. I set my fork down and took a deep breath. Right, Jake, because you've clearly got it all figured out. Mom intervened, waving her fork like a referee. Boys, let's not argue. It's Thanksgiving. We're not arguing, Jake said innocently. Just making conversation. Emily shot me a look across the table, her eyes saying, just let it go. I nodded slightly, picking at my food. As dinner progressed, the subtle and not so subtle digs kept coming. Jake brought up the time I flunked a math test in high school, then the time I accidentally broke Dad's favorite coffee mug. It was like he had a mental archive of every mistake I'd ever made, ready to pull out at the worst possible moments. So, Kyle, Jake said, leaning back in his chair, what's it like living alone? Must be nice not having to answer to anyone, huh? No responsibilities, no stress, just you and your microwave dinners. I clenched my jaw but forced a smile. It's great, actually. I enjoy the peace and quiet. Oh, I bet, he said, laughing. You've always been more of a lone wolf. Or, you know, just alone. Dad finally spoke up, his voice gruff. Jake, enough. Let the boy eat. Jake held up his hands in mock surrender. Just joking, Dad. Relax. Mom sighed, shaking her head. Jake, you should really be nicer to your brother. But even her tone lacked conviction. She wasn't defending me as much as she was trying to maintain some illusion of harmony. Jake knew it too, and he just grinned, taking another bite of turkey. Emily, bless her, tried again to steer the conversation. Mom, the stuffing's really good this year. Did you use a new recipe? Mom brightened a little. I did actually. It's one I saw on TV last week. They used more sage. Oh, here we go. Jake interrupted, rolling his eyes. Mom's cooking tips. Kyle, you should take notes. Maybe you could learn how to make something that doesn't come in a box. I looked up, finally losing patience. What's your problem, Jake? Seriously, you've been on my case all night. The table went silent. Even Dad looked up from his plate, his expression unreadable. Jake, of course, just smirked. Relax, man, he said, as if he were so innocent. I'm just having fun. Don't be so sensitive. That's your excuse every year. I shot back. It's not fun. It's just you being a jerk. Kyle, Mom snapped, her eyes wide. Language. Oh, come on, Jake said, laughing. Don't get your feelings hurt, little bro. It's Thanksgiving. Lighten up. I stared at him, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Emily looked down at her plate, clearly wishing she were anywhere else. Maybe if you spent less time criticizing everyone else, I said quietly, you'd have something better to do. Jake's grin faltered, just for a second. Then he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. You want to talk about better things to do? Like what? Sitting alone in your apartment every night, watching reruns and pretending you're happy. Jake, stop, Emily said, her voice firm. But Jake wasn't finished. You act like you're above all this, above us. But let's be real. Kyle, what have you done that's so great? What do you have to show for yourself? Enough, Dad barked, slamming his hand on the table. Both of you sit down and shut up. The room went dead silent. Even Jake didn't dare say another word. I stared at my plate, my appetite long gone. Mom muttered something about dessert, standing to clear the dishes. I stayed quiet, my hands clenched under the table. Jake smirked again, but this time there was something in his eyes, like he knew he'd pushed too far, but couldn't admit it. The table may have been set with turkey and stuffing, but all I could taste was resentment. When dinner was finally over, the night was far from done. We'd barely made it to the couch before Jake started in with his usual performance, Kyle's greatest hits, starring me as the punchline to every joke. It wasn't enough for him to spoil dinner. No, he had to keep the show rolling, and everyone else just played along as if it were normal. Hey, remember when Kyle tried to fix the lawn mower and ended up flooding the garage? Jake said, laughing so hard he nearly spilled his drink. What was the plan there, bro? Drown the engine? Mom chimed in before I could respond. Oh, that was a disaster. Kyle, you've always been so clumsy. I told you to call your father, but no, you had to do it yourself. It was one time, I said, my voice sharp. And I was 16. Jake grinned, leaning back on the couch like he'd just won an award. 16 doesn't matter, man. You've been messing up since day one. Emily, sitting on the armchair, piped up. Jake, come on. You don't have to keep dragging him. Jake turned to her. Dragging him? Please. Kyle's fine. He knows I'm joking, right, little bro? I ignored him, focusing on the TV. A rerun of some old sitcom was playing, but I couldn't hear a word over the sound of Jake's voice. Mom walked in from the kitchen, carrying a tray of coffee and dessert. All right, everyone, pie time. Let's try to be civil, please. Civil? Jake said, raising an eyebrow. I'm always civil. It's Kyle who can't take a joke. Don't blame this on me. I yelled, finally looking at him. You've been a jerk all night, and everyone just lets you get away with it. Oh, poor Kyle, Jake said mockingly, wiping an invisible tear from his eye. Always the victim. Boo-hoo. Maybe if you didn't make it so easy, I wouldn't have so much material. Jake, Mom said, her tone sharp. That's enough. But Jake wasn't finished. He never was. What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Look, Mom, you're the one who's always cleaning up after him. How many times did you have to call his landlord to bail him out? And let's not forget college. 2 semesters and out. Real impressive. Jake, seriously, shut up. Emily said, her voice louder now. Oh, don't start, Emily. Jake shot back. You're no saint either. You're 28 and still living in Mom's basement. You're just mad I'm saying out loud what we're all thinking. I'm not living in the basement. Emily yelled, her face red. It's temporary, and you know it. Yeah, sure, Jake said, rolling his eyes. Temporary, like how Kyle's career is taking off. I stood up, my fists clenched. You've got a lot to say for someone whose entire life revolves around putting other people down. What's your deal, Jake? Are you that insecure, or do you just get off on being a jerk? Jake's grin disappeared. Watch it, Kyle. Don't start something you can't finish. Oh, don't worry, I said, stepping closer. I can finish it just fine. Dad, who had been silent for most of the evening, finally spoke up. Both of you, sit your butts down. I'm sick of hearing this nonsense. Why don't you say something to him for once? I snapped, pointing at Jake. He's the one causing problems, but you all just sit there and let him. Don't drag me into your garbage, Dad said, glaring at me. Jake laughed bitterly. See? Even Dad agrees you're the problem, Kyle. You know what? I said, my voice rising. Forget this. Forget you. And forget this whole family dynamic where Jake gets to act like a king and the rest of us are just supposed to endure it. Mom gasped. Kyle, how dare you talk like that? How dare I? I shot back. How dare you let this happen year after year? You enable him, you all do, and I'm done with it. The room went silent. Even Emily looked like she wanted to disappear into the couch. Jake just sat there, smirking, like he'd won. But for the first time, I didn't care. You know what, Jake? I said, my voice steady now. You're not better than anyone here. You're just loud. That's it. And one day, when your kids grow up and start resenting you the way we resent you, maybe you'll figure it out. But until then, go to hell. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. Mom yelled after me. Kyle, you're not leaving like this. Watch me, I said, slamming the door behind me. I sat in my car for a minute, my hands shaking. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Mom or Emily trying to convince me to come back. I didn't even check. For the first time, I felt like I'd finally said what needed to be said. Jake could sit on his little throne all he wanted. I wasn't going to be his punching bag anymore. But as I sat there, something didn't feel right. Something else was nagging at me, a sense that the night wasn't over, not yet. Just before I turned on the car, the door to the house burst open, and Jake came stomping out, his face contorted in anger. He didn't even bother with a coat, just marched across the driveway toward my car. I rolled down the window halfway, more out of instinct than anything else. What the hell is your problem? He yelled, his breath visible in the freezing air. My problem? I shot back. You're the one who's been pushing buttons all night. Oh, don't start that nonsense again, he said, slamming his hand on the roof of my car. You think you can just walk out like that, throw your little tantrum, and leave the rest of us to clean up the mess? Mess? I said, laughing bitterly. The only mess here is you, Jake. You've been a self-centered jerk your entire life, and everyone just lets you get away with it. Jake's eyes narrowed, and for a second, I thought he might actually punch me. You're a real piece of work, you know that? Acting like you're so much better than the rest of us. Well, guess what, Kyle? You're a joke. Always have been, always will be. I'd rather be a joke than a bully. I snapped, opening the car door and stepping out. My pulse was pounding in my ears, but I wasn't about to back down. We stood there in the driveway, the tension between us so thick. Jake towered over me, his fists clenched at his sides. I wasn't sure if he was going to swing or just keep running his mouth, but either way, I wasn't backing down. Go back inside, Jake, I said, my voice low and steady. Go back to your perfect little life and leave me alone. Or what? He said, stepping closer. You going to hit me? Go ahead, Kyle. Show everyone what a tough guy you are. I didn't move. My hands were at my sides, trembling with anger, but I kept them there. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. Pathetic, Jake spat, shaking his head. You can't even stand up for yourself. No wonder nobody respects you. That was it. I didn't even think. My hand shot out, shoving him hard in the chest. He stumbled back a step, his eyes widening in surprise. What the hell, man? He said, regaining his balance. You don't get to talk to me like that anymore, I said, my voice shaking. I'm done, Jake. Done with your garbage. Done with this family. Done with all of it. Jake's face twisted into a snarl. You think walking away makes you better than me? You're just a coward. Always have been. Always will be. I'd rather be a coward than a bully. I shot back. At least I don't need to tear other people down to feel good about myself. The sound of the door opening interrupted us. Emily stepped outside, her face pale. Guys, stop it, she said. Just stop. This is insane. Stay out of this, Emily. Jake snapped, not even looking at her. No, I won't stay out of it, she said, stepping between us. You're acting like a maniac, Jake, and Kyle, you're not helping. Both of you need to grow up. I took a step back. I'm not the one who started this, and I'm not the one running away, Jake shot back. Emily looked at me, her eyes pleading. Kyle, please, just come back inside. Let's figure this out. I shook my head. There's nothing to figure out, Emily. Jake made it pretty clear how he feels about me, and honestly, I don't care anymore. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but Jake cut her off. Good. Go. Nobody's stopping you. Emily, she yelled, startling both of us. For once in your life, Jake, shut up. The three of us stood there in the freezing driveway, the weight of years of resentment and unspoken anger hanging between us. I glanced back at the house, half expecting Mom or Dad to come out, but the door stayed closed. They weren't going to intervene. They never did. Jake finally broke the silence. You walk away now, Kyle, and don't bother coming back. You're not part of this family anymore. Good, I said, turning toward my car, because I don't want to be. I got in and slammed the door. I didn't look back as I drove away, but as the house disappeared in my rearview mirror, a pit formed in my stomach. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Something was coming. I could feel it. The drive home felt like a blur. My mind was spinning, replaying every word Jake said, every smug look, every insult. I should have felt free, finally cutting ties with the toxicity, but instead, something kept gnawing at me, a mix of anger, guilt, and something I couldn't quite name. Halfway back to my apartment, my phone buzzed again. I pulled over onto the shoulder and grabbed it. A text from Emily lit up the screen. You need to come back. Something's wrong. Please. My chest tightened. Something about those two words, something's wrong, made me anxious. Emily wasn't the type to exaggerate. If she was texting me like this, it had to be serious. I sat there for a moment, gripping the phone as the cold air seeped in through the cracked window. My better judgment screamed at me to keep driving, to leave all the dysfunction behind, but Emily's words stayed with me. I sighed, shoved the car into gear, and turned around. The house looked different when I pulled back into the driveway. The warm glow that had mocked me earlier now felt eerie, like it didn't belong. As I stepped out of the car, I felt something was amiss. The front door was slightly ajar, swinging gently in the wind. I hesitated. The living room was empty. The plates from dinner were still on the table, the remnants of dessert untouched. The laughter and chaos from earlier were gone, replaced by a heavy silence. My heart pounded in my chest as I called out, "Emily? Mom? Dad?" No answer. I moved through the house, my footsteps loud against the hardwood floor. The kitchen was dark, the only light coming from the refrigerator door, left ajar. A faint hum filled the room, but it wasn't enough to drown out the uneasy quiet. That's when I heard it, a muffled thud from the back of the house. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. For a moment, I thought about turning around and leaving, but then I remembered Emily's text. If she needed me, I wasn't going to abandon her, not again. The hallway felt longer than it should have. I reached the door to Dad's study, where the noise had come from. The door was slightly open, and the dim light spilling out cast strange shadows on the walls. I pushed it open slowly. Inside, Jake was standing by the desk, his back to me. He was holding something, a photo frame. His shoulders were tense, his head bowed. For a moment, I thought he was crying, but then he turned around, and I saw his face. It wasn't sadness, it was rage. "You came back," he said, his voice low and guttural. "Of course you did. You couldn't just leave it alone." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Where's Emily? Where's Mom and Dad?" Jake laughed, but it was hollow, humorless. He slammed the photo frame down on the desk, shattering the glass. "They're gone. Just us now." "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, taking a step back. "Gone where?" Jake didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, his fists clenched. "You always thought you were better than me, didn't you, Mr. Perfect? Always the victim, poor little Kyle." "I never thought that," I said, my voice trembling. "Jake, where are they?" "You're the reason this family's broken," he snarled, his voice rising. "You, with your holier-than-thou attitude, your constant running away. You're the one who doesn't belong." Jake was unhinged. This wasn't the brother I grew up with, the one who loved teasing but never crossed the line into outright madness. Something had snapped in him, and I didn't know how to fix it. Suddenly, a noise from upstairs broke the tension. Jake's head whipped around, his expression shifting from rage to something darker. Without thinking, I bolted for the stairs, pushing past him as he yelled after me. "Don't you dare go up there, Kyle." I didn't listen. My legs carried me up 2 steps at a time, my heart pounding in my ears. I could see light spilling out from under one of the bedroom doors. I ran toward it, throwing the door open. Inside, Emily was sitting on the floor, her back against the bed. She looked up at me, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. "Kyle," she whispered. "He's lost it." "What happened?" I asked, kneeling beside her. Before she could answer, Jake's voice boomed from the hallway. "Get out of there, Kyle. Now." I stood up, positioning myself between Emily and the door as Jake appeared in the doorway, his face twisted with fury. "She texted you, didn't she?" he spat. "She had to drag you back here to play the hero. You always need to be the hero." "Jake, stop," I said, my voice firm. "Whatever's going on, we can fix it. Just calm down." "There's nothing to fix," he screamed, stepping into the room. "This family's broken, Kyle. It's been broken for years, and it's your fault. You and Emily, always ganging up on me, always making me the bad guy." "Nobody made you the bad guy," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You did that all on your own." Jake lunged at me, but I was ready this time. I sidestepped him, grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her to her feet. "Get out," I whispered, and she didn't hesitate. I saw Mom and Dad in the corner of the room. They weren't yelling. They weren't rushing to pull us apart. They just stood there, frozen, like spectators at a train wreck. "Do something," Emily screamed. "He's losing it." But Mom just shook her head, her hands fluttering uselessly, like she couldn't decide whether to intervene or walk away. Dad stood stiffly by her side, his arms crossed, his jaw tight. He didn't say a word. "Mom, Dad, help him," Emily shouted again, but neither moved. Finally, Mom muttered, "They're brothers, Emily. They'll sort it out." "Sort it out," I shouted, stepping back from Jake. "Are you serious right now? He's out of control, and you're just standing there." The front door was in sight when Jake caught up, grabbing my arm and yanking me back. I turned, swinging wildly, and my fist connected with his jaw. He stumbled back, more surprised than hurt, and I used the moment to shove Emily toward the door. "Go," I shouted. "Now." She hesitated for a split second before nodding and running outside. Jake recovered quickly, his face a mask of fury as he came at me again, but this time I was ready. The fight was raw, messy, and desperate. Two brothers finally tearing into years of resentment and rage. But in the end, it wasn't about winning. It was about surviving. As I stood there, breathing hard, Jake slumped against the wall, glaring at me with hatred in his eyes. For the first time, I saw him for what he really was. A man broken by his own bitterness, lashing out at the world because he didn't know how to fix himself. "I'm done, Jake," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You can't hurt me anymore." Without another word, I turned and walked out the door. Emily and I went to a diner. We slid into a corner booth, the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. "I don't think I can go back there," she said softly, her voice trembling. "You shouldn't," I replied. "You don't owe them anything. They're still Mom and Dad," she whispered, her hands shaking around her coffee cup. "No," I said firmly. "Parents protect their kids. They don't make excuses for abuse or stand by while it happens." Her eyes filled with doubt. "What do we do now?" "We cut them out," I said, taking a steady sip of coffee. "Completely. It's the only way." Later that night, I blocked Jake, then Dad, then Mom. The weight of their toxicity lifted, replaced by a strange calm. Cutting ties wasn't easy, but it was the first step toward freedom, and for the first time, I felt like I could finally move forward. I don't know what you guys may think, but this is it for me. I'm done with their nonsense.